Good evening. We'd like to welcome everyone tonight to our Bountiful City Council meeting on November 28th. And we are so excited to welcome a scout troop, Troop 109. Is that correct? So we will turn the time over to them to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Color guard attention. Forward march. May the audience please rise. Color guard halt. Post the colors of the United States of America. Salute the flag. Repeat after me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Color guard dismissed. Audience may be seated.
Thank you so much, Jeff Theriot and the rest of the scouts, the Troop 109. We really appreciate you being here tonight. And you're welcome to stay as long as you can, but we understand if you need to go. But thank you so much. We love that you're here tonight and that you care about what's going on in your local government. And it's really fun to have you here, scouts. So thank you. We will now have a prayer from Cosette Kais.
Before I say the prayer, I just wanted to thank those scouts for that pledge. It's been a while since I've had the opportunity to say the Pledge of Allegiance in a situation like this, and they did it in such a reverent and dignified manner, and I really, really appreciated that. Thank you. Our dear Heavenly Father, we're thankful for this opportunity to be here tonight. Thankful for the energy that's in this room, for the love of our country here, and for the loyalty and for the efforts and of all those that are here, and for how much they care about this city of Bountiful and about this great country of America. We thank Thee for the veterans and for all the city workers that make it possible for us to have our roads cleared and our waters working properly, and the lights and the beautiful Christmas lights that are going up, and for the spirit that it brings of light. Please bless each of these organizations to be safe in their service and duties, and we're thankful this night to be able to have this meeting and pray for all those who are participating, that Thy Spirit will be with us and that Thy will would be done, and that we can have Thy guidance in our lives and in this great country and in this city. We pray in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you so much for that beautiful prayer. It is now time for our public comment, and so we'd love to hear from anyone in the public that would like to speak for 2 minutes. Please state your name and address.
Hi, Richard Watson, Bountiful. I'm just here, well, you guys know why I'm here. 3 weeks from tonight, December 19th, is our Christmas concert. Gibbons family and friends, and I learned yesterday that ticket sales are very, very slow. So I'm gonna put flyers on the back, and I would love if everyone in here would pass the word around. And so I have posters, lawn signs, flyers. If you need any of those, just give me a call. We'd love to fill up that place, especially with this Gibbons family, because they're very talented. So, and they'll definitely bring the Christmas spirit. So, And thank you for your support, too. So.
Thank you.
I wanted to just take a couple of minutes tonight to commend the Bountiful Lions Club for another outstanding turkey shoot. And this is an example of volunteerism and community service at its best. And perhaps best of all, it's truly a family affair, which a lot of people don't understand. And as you likely know, the turkey shoot allows the Lions Club to raise thousands of dollars that are then used for service projects in Bountiful. And during the turkey shoot, a number of us collected signatures in order to let the citizens of Utah vote on the state flag. And this was done independent of the Lions Club. And out of the 145 signatures I reviewed, and this is really interesting, 18 were from Bountiful, and 127 or 88% were from other areas around the state. And these included people from Woods Cross, West Jordan, West Valley, St. George, Layton, South Weber, Kaysville, Syracuse, Ogden, Centerville, West Point, Demerun Valley, North Salt Lake, Saratoga Springs, Eagle Mountain, North Ogden, West Haven, Sandy, Taylorsville, Kearns, Farmington, West Bountiful, Price, Manila, Mona, Salt Lake City, Midvale, Roy, Grantsville, Nephi, Lehigh, Magna, Riverton, Provo, Orem, and Tooele. So it's really amazing how many people come in, and the great thing is that they leave the money here, and that is then used for community projects. So I just wanted to give a shout out to the Lions Club.
Thank you. Ron Mortensen, for the record. Anyone else? Okay. Oh, yes. Thank you.
I'm not going to pass up this opportunity.
Thank you.
30 seconds. Trevor Theriot, 99 Viewcrest Circle. I love Bountiful. Born and raised here. Went to Holbrook Elementary, Mill Creek, Bountiful High. My wife's from Bountiful. We just love it. Just want to go on the record to say that. And thank you to everyone here that helps make Bountiful such a good place to live. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anyone else? Okay. We will now move to council reports, and we'll start with Councilwoman Bradshaw.
Thank you, Mayor. First is a request. Richard, I'd love a yard sign for the concert, if you happen to have any with you tonight and want to leave one. Signs? Yeah, a sign. I'd love to take one. If not, I'll get one from you later. My council report is that the South Davis Recreation District is still working to finalize the budget. The Rec District has until December 31st to do so. The next meeting of the board is on December 11th at 5:30. Any of the public that is interested is welcome to attend. There's public comment time at the beginning of that board meeting, just like at council meetings. We're still working to balance the budget, which will likely come in the combination of some budget cuts, some fee increases, property tax increases probably still potentially on the budget or on the menu as well, in order to find the right combination that'll bring fiscal stability to that organization that we're a part of. So would encourage any that are interested to attend. Again, it's December 11th at 5:30 at the Rec District on the second floor.
Thank you. Councilman Higginson.
Nothing this evening, Mayor. Thank you.
Councilwoman Segura Barr.
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Councilwoman Price Hewish.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a couple of things that I wanted to announce regarding the Bountiful Davis Arts Center. They really go big in the holidays, so during the holidays. So right now until December 23rd is the Winter Art Market. They have over 60 vendors. A lot of these people who are artisans and crafts people are local, and it's just incredible, and you can buy something from $2 to $400. And part of the proceeds of every sale helps fund some of our free family art nights and other wonderful free programming that is held at the Bountiful Davis Art Center on Main Street. Another really fun thing, and this for a more limited time frame, is the Gingerbread Festival, and that will be held December 2nd through the 9th. And I got a sneak peek at these gingerbread houses, and they are super cute, and they're really creative and amazing. So go on over to the Bountiful Davis Art Center. And I also did just want to say, when I drove up to City Hall tonight, I don't know, it's probably multiple departments that are responsible for our wonderful light display, but everybody who is involved in arranging and putting that up, it is such a little heart lifter and elevator, and just, I loved it. And so thank you to everybody who is involved. Gary, you would know, but it's, who is responsible? A lot of people.
It's our power department.
Well, thank you to the power department. It's so wonderful. And the lights on Main Street, and they're really happy. Thank you.
Just as a point of personal privilege, I just want to thank my mom for being here tonight. Really fun to have her, and she's been a den mother for many years. That's why she loves the Scouts. And I remember lots of times at our house growing up with Scouts at our house, and so she's done a lot for our community, and I appreciate her. I want to just report, I'm on the South Davis Fire District Board, and that we had 2 fires recently in Bountiful, and I'm just so grateful for their quick response and their hard work during those times. And it's nice to know that we can count on them, and heard from them about both fires, and it's great that we know that we can count on them when we need them. Also, just as a follow-up for COG, the Council of Governments, there's a initiative that the COG, a resolution that was passed about water infrastructure, just urging our state to build more water infrastructure, reservoirs and dams. President Adams visited our COG and gave us kind of a legislative preview, and also the county is administering a program to help first-time home buyers, and so we'll be looking at an interlocal agreement soon in association with that, probably at in the next meeting or 2. So those are my reports. Councilman Bell.
Thank you. Just want to repeat for emphasis what Richard Watson was discussing about the Gibbons Family Christmas Concert on December 19th. What a wonderful way to help us celebrate and get in the Christmas spirit, and also support our concerts that we put on each year, our summer concerts. It's a wonderful fundraiser and a good cause, and hope that you all that are available on December 19th come and participate with us. Tickets are available on the city website, so you can go there and get them there. So thank you.
Thank you. We'll now consider approval of expenditures greater than $1,000 paid November 8th and 15th.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Thanks. We'll now consider approval of ordinance 2023-08, updating Bountiful City's subdivision code. We'll turn the time over to Amber Corbridge.
Okay, just a moment as we get it up. Okay. All right, so we're going to look over the Bountiful Land Use Text Amendment proposal for both subdivisions and administration and procedures. So as background, the Utah State Senate Bill 174 requires municipalities to update their subdivision ordinances to comply with a new review and approval process. The subdivision application review must meet the following requirements. Subdivision provisions apply only to 1 and 2 family dwellings and townhomes. City Council may not approve subdivision applications for the above subdivision types. And Planning Commission may not approve final subdivision plats for the above subdivision types. There are other state code requirements regarding the subdivision application review which do not need to be in our city code. However, staff will still be required to meet those requirements. Staff reviewed the existing Bountiful Land Use Code for subdivisions and administration and procedures for compliance with the state code. And there are necessary changes that need to be made to the land use code to meet both the state code requirements as well as meet the city's goals and objectives. During the November 7th, 2023 Planning Commission meeting, the commission reviewed this proposed amendment and held a public hearing. The commission forwarded a positive recommendation to City Council with a 6-0 vote with the following changes. The city shall have 2 separate subdivision application review processes where A, the city will meet the state code requirements outlined previously for 1 family, 2 family, and townhome developments, and B, all other subdivision applications will follow the current review and approval process. Also, the Planning Commission shall hold a public hearing for preliminary plat review for 1 family, 2 family, and townhome developments. So in this review, you're going to ask the following questions. Are the proposed land use code amendments necessary? Are the proposed land use code amendments in the best interest of the public? Are the proposed land use code amendments in harmony with the objectives and purposes of the code? In our analysis, the city will need to comply with state code mentioned previously. The commission recommends that the Planning Commission be the land use authority for the preliminary subdivision approval for 1 family, 2 family, and townhome developments. The commission also recommends the city staff be the land use authority for approval of the final subdivision plat for 1 family, 2 family, and townhome developments. Staff recommends other sections of the subdivision and administrative and procedures code be amended to meet the best interest of the public and meet city goals and objectives. The following are some of the changes that are in your packet in the exhibit. The planning department shall accept the preliminary subdivision application if shown to be complete, as this is considered a land use application. Currently, it goes through the engineering department, so we're just switching it to our planning department. The planning department will also be responsible for routing these plans to other departments and place the item on the next available planning commission agenda. City staff will review subdivision plans, and the city engineer and planner will present the preliminary plat and recommendations to the planning commission. The city will require geotechnical reports for developments where the average slope exceeds 15%. The final Mylar plat size will need to meet the county recorder's requirements. And subdivision amendment applications will need to follow the new subdivision review and approval process. So we recommend that City Council review the proposed land use code text amendment, hold a public hearing, and approve the modifications made to the subdivisions and administration and procedures codes. Any questions?
Hey, Amber, just for the sake of our scouts here tonight, do you mind giving us kind of,
Sure.
A sentence or two in layman's terms about what this is about?
Okay.
What are we talking about?
So tonight we're looking at, so the city has various codes, and one of them are land use codes. And in those land use codes, we have a subdivision code specific to how we plat the land. It's not so much about the use and the zoning, but it's how the ownership, how it affects ownership. And so previously, all subdivision applications would go to both Planning Commission and City Council for review, and the state now has changed that for one family, two family, and townhome type developments where they're platting the land, it will just only go through planning, not council. So I don't know if there's any more that I need to kind of explain, but that's.
Yeah, thank you. That's
basically
that's really helpful. So yeah, when someone comes to Bountiful and they want to build a new house or a new neighborhood, then this is changing how that would get approved, the process that would go through. So yeah, that's really helpful. Thanks a lot, Amber, for that presentation. So this is requires a public hearing for us tonight. Would the council like to discuss this before we have a public hearing?
Happy either way.
I don't have anything to add.
First.
Yeah.
Okay, we will open a public hearing for this item, and we'd like to hear from anything that the public would like to tell us, and then we will bring it back and discuss it as a council. Is there anyone who would like to speak?
This is a change that takes this city council out of the process in a fairly significant way, and it takes it into the administrative side of things. So I would just, and it's a people that are not elected, so we don't have any elected officials in this particular area of code making decisions now. So I just have you take that into consideration. I know the state legislature is getting their fingers into everything, but sometimes a little pushback or do not live by the letter of the law and don't expand it out beyond that is what I'd say. Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else that would like to speak on this topic? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council to discuss this.
Mayor, could I ask a question
Please.
of Amber? And I appreciate Mr. Mortensen's question, because that was my chief concern. Amber, is there anything that we're doing tonight moving moving approval authority from elected officials to administrative services folks that's not state mandated?
There are the changes from like staff, like who accepts the application. Those aren't required by the state. Some of those changes I mentioned in the presentation.
But the council was never involved in that. I mean, approval of projects. Is there anything that's not state mandated that we're moving from legislative to administrative?
I don't believe so.
Okay,
If I may add,
please.
we are the extensions that we from time to time have to issue. If after a subdivision is approved, it has to be in its final form as approved by, usually it's a city engineer, and then that property owner has 12 months to record that plat at the county. If they fail to do that, that approval is null and void. The current process does require for them to come back to council per code for a 1 additional year extension. That's all council can provide. Given the administrative nature of that, we did write the code in that we would like staff to be that extender, one-time extension, the same authority that the council has, in that for 1, 2, and townhomes, staff is the final approver. So we simply indicated that that final approver should be the extender, if you will, and based, so that takes care of 1, 2, and towns. For what Amber and I have been calling everything else, which city council remains, that administrative land use approval for extensions, we did indicate for staff to be that extender of that 1 year after council approves it, based on the nature of the administrative process of it. It doesn't go through the commission, it goes directly to the council. So that would be the only other change that even though Councilman Richard Higginson indicated it's a legislative item as written by the state, the city council, it is still acting in an administrative capacity. The same would be for a site plan review, as an example. But that we don't have to move forward on that extender. We can change that if council felt the need to remain that extender, if you will.
I don't know if that's accurate. I don't think the council could be the extender if they're not the approver.
I'm talking for everything else, not for 1, 2, and towns.
I'm with you.
So
Thanks for the clarification.
the question I'd have would be, is there any recourse for those folks should staff deny that extension? And do you feel like staff will be inclined to grant extensions or not to grant extensions?
We would apply the same criteria, which is as simple as good cause. I don't recall in my 4.5 years, council ever not extending the requested plat amendment, as it is simply stated in the code that that approver has the ability to provide that 1-year extension. And the reasons for extending are as simple as we just need more time. It's as simple as that. We just need one written statement by that register agent or that applicant. So I do not see staff ever denying that extension, as it's implied in the code.
After Mr. Hill's comments, might I opine for the Scouts momentarily?
Please.
Yes, I would just add that the same criteria would apply. If they meet the code, then we do not have the ability to arbitrarily deny an extension.
Great. So Scouts, thanks for being here. I just want to give you a little background on what's going on tonight. One of the things that's going on tonight. Mr. Gary Hill, if he'll raise his hand right here, he is the business leader of our city. He's like the CEO of a company. And he runs the day-to-day operations with a fantastic staff that he has hired and trained. And we have great professional folks. There's kind of a tension in city government, and maybe government at all levels, where elected officials, like the people sitting up here, they like to feel like they're in charge, and we kind of are. And they like to feel like they're in charge because if they screw up, the voters can throw them out. Now, if Gary Hill screws up at his job, which I haven't seen a lot of screw-ups from Gary Hill, but if Gary Hill screws up at his job, what happens to him? You guys have nothing to say about it. Voters can't do anything about it. We have to do something about it. So, in city governance, in the operation of a city, there's the legislative part of the government where policies or code is approved, and then there's the practical application of that code that happens with city staff. And there's always the tension between elected officials and city staff where city staff knows that they're professionals and they can do it better if the city council would just get out of the way. And city council knows that if the staff would just comply with their silly wishes and do what they tell them to do, everything would be perfect. So the city council is trying to preserve legislative power and, frankly, give voters the opportunity to have someone to go appeal to should something go wrong in city governance. And city staff would rather make all of the decisions internal, behind closed doors, without any transparency. I'm just teasing about that part. Anyway, that's one of the issues that underlies this discussion we're having tonight. Where is the authority going to lie to make final approval on subdivisions, et cetera? The state has mandated some changes, and we want to be sure and make those changes, but that's the underlying, and when I say tension, I mean just interaction.
It's good tension.
Yeah, it's good tension. So that's a long-winded background of what's going on tonight so that you can kind of understand the balance of power in city government. Mayor, thank you for that time.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. What other discussion items do we have about this?
Mayor, can I follow my colleague's lead, but describe for the scouts, but also for the adults, the other tension that is taking place here? The tension is, for our scouts, you've probably studied the three branches of government, right? Judicial, legislative, executive, checks and balances. They hold each other in tension, and the system balances because of that tension. There are other levels of government, and they also hold the system in tension: cities, counties, state, federal government. And this is very much about a bill that was run by the state because the state wants cities to approve more housing faster. Bountiful is a nearly built-out city. The only subdivision you can probably think of under construction is the one near the temple where Bountiful Boulevard turns into the B. That's maybe the last big subdivision we'll ever build in Bountiful. So this change may not be super significant for the city of Bountiful that the state is requiring. But there are other cities that are growing faster, maybe Lehigh or Bluffdale, Riverton, where the state feels like cities might be not moving fast enough, and hence moving it to the staff level to approve. And there might also be some tension between property developers and cities. And so this bill that was proposed was the work of a lot of compromise between the League of Cities and Towns, which is a group we belong to, and legislative leadership to find a pathway to allow single-family and townhomes to move forward faster, but maintain legislative control at the city council level for large-scale projects like big apartment buildings. As our friend Mr. Mortensen noted, it is the state legislature taking power away from city councils, removing it from the level where it's closest to neighbors, which leaves us not a lot of opportunity to make changes, but that's an important level of tension for the adults to understand, is this is very much about the state and cities.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this ordinance?
One thing that I would just like to point out is that there is still a public hearing component to this, but that will be held at the Planning Commission level. So that, I just think that's important for residents to know that they can still let their voices be heard. But that's included in this, so.
Thanks.
Mayor, if I may.
Please.
Given the limited number of all other development that is likely to happen within the city, and I would prefer, and I would propose and see if what other people think about this, I would prefer to keep the extension for all other development in the city council approval process, because then that keeps everything in all other development in the same lane. The single homes, duplexes, and townhomes in the other lane, which is mandated by the state, the legislation that was referred to. And I think if they're, I will likely make a motion that that is what we do to keep it in the same lane. And I agree with what Mr. Astoria said, that we often approve, but there are very limited, because of the type and nature of our city. I can only think of a small handful in the time, in the 2 years I've been here, where we've been asked to extend. And so I think I would like to keep that. Again, I think we should go to where the state has mandated and see. There's no preclusion for further action in the future, but we can take the action that's required by the state and wait and see and keep that in all other development in its own lane. And if there's further analysis that needs to happen down the road, nothing precludes us from doing that.
Great. Sounds like you were ready to make a motion. Was there any other discussion?
I'm curious, from Councilwoman Price Hewish. I agree with her sentiments that we should meet the letter of what the state law requires, but retain all other powers at the municipal level and give people the greatest access to elected officials possible. So I'm just curious, before you make the motion, if you might want to describe what changes you would make, just so that we
I
can.
have a suggestion to that, because I anticipated maybe that would be something you guys would want to do. The language on 20, page 20, letter H, actually. So, let's see. Right now it says, let's see, let me get there. Right now it says 1 year of the date of approval unless extended by city engineer and city planner. Instead, it could say extended by the corresponding land use authority as specified in section E above. The change? Okay. So so it would say, unless extended by the corresponding land use authority as specified in section E above. And section E, just to go over that real quick, is where it separates the two approval processes for these two types of developments. So section E has one for one family, two family, and townhome development plats, and then 2 is for all other development plats, which would still go to city council for final.
I think that addresses the issue. Do you agree with that, Councilmember Bradshaw?
I think Francisco has an additional.
I was going to say, was that where you were aiming to make your changes, Councilwoman, or did you have?
Yes, that
okay.
was it. It
That was the section? Okay.
Because then it refers to the corresponding land use authority, which for all other subdivisions would be city council. For single, duplex, and townhomes would be the administrative. So, and it references that in Exhibit AE 1, 2, and ABC.
Okay. So with those changes,
One point of
Okay.
clarification, if I could.
yes.
Under E, number 2, we have number 2 is supposed to reference all other development plats rather than the single-family, two-family, and townhome development plats. A excludes the city council. I don't know in what cases that is the norm. And then B is the one that I was expecting to find there, which is the city council would be the final approval body on that. So is A supposed to be somewhere else? Does A not apply to this, or is there another development plat, not single-family, two-family, or townhome, or all other, that A should apply to?
I
Or
think,
am I just being dumb?
no, I don't think you're being dumb. Definitely not. But I think that A is referring to those all other developments, and it's saying that the engineer in the planning department will make a recommendation to planning commission, and then, and maybe it would be helpful if after the word reasons it said and, so then it's clear that you are going to B, and then you go to B, which is then the planning commission takes that and makes a recommendation
Okay, so
to
A is
city
like the
council.
first step.
But
They
A,
all build on each other.
So our staff is desperately flagging us that they would like to help us interpret this.
Okay.
On both sides.
please,
Yes.
help me, help me.
So
A, B, and C under item
is
2,
existing code.
under E is existing code.
Oh.
We
just
didn't
moved it
change it, we
down.
just moved it to this section.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you see that A is confusing because it
It
is
is.
someone else as the final approval authority rather than the city council?
I see your point, but I believe that it was, I guess, not originally written, but it was written as the mayor indicated as process A, process B, and then process C, where C indicates that city council shall review the subdivision for final approval.
Perfect. And I need to know from all involved on the city staff, was there any glee or satisfaction taking in all of the red lines through city council in changing this document?
No.
Okay.
The
And-
answer is no.
And
That's what he
and I
said.
do have one more comment.
Yes.
If Councilman Higginson, if that satisfied his questions, I need to go back to H, and we need to make one more change. At the very, very end of H, it needs to read, if it is not so delivered within 1 year or within any additional period of time approved by the city, comma, the approval shall expire. We need to remove the language on top of 21 that talks about engineer and city planner and city council. If we just keep that read by the city and then the approval shall expire, it completely works on both levels, as that corresponding land use authority would be the extender of each type of subdivision.
It does.
So
Makes sense.
Good catch.
Yes, thank you. That's good. Okay.
To Councilmember Higginson's point, okay, no, never mind.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
Is this where we talk to the scouts about making sausage and that it's not always pretty?
Since Clint's not here, no.
Yeah, okay.
Could, Amber, do you mind reading that
Sure.
Exhibit AH with
Yes.
all these modifications?
Yes, I can do that. Okay, ready? Like the whole thing or just the part that we're changing from the exhibit? Okay, so it'll read, unless extended by the corresponding land use authority as specified in section E above, for good cause shown, for an additional period of time of up to 1 year at the request of the applicant. If it is not so delivered within 1 year or within any additional, let's see. Period of time approved by the city, the approval shall expire.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
Yes, one.
Yeah.
Okay,
I appreciate staff keeping us compliant with what the legislature has mandated. I'd like to know what happens if we don't comply with what the legislature has mandated.
Well-
Just as an exercise in discussion.
I'm Francisco Astorga, I'm the planning director. What would happen if we don't get this approved? And I misspoke at planning commission. I thought the deadline was December 31st, while the actual deadline is February 1st of 2024. If the city council remained the land use authority for subdivisions, that subdivision would not be approved. We could be called out and say, the council does not have the ability to approve subdivisions that are 1, 2, or townhomes.
thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I have one.
Okay,
Just looking again at the bottom of page 20 where Francisco made the addition, the word city that is in red, would it be more appropriate to, again, use the corresponding land use authority there?
I would say no. I think it actually is confusing, because at that point, it doesn't matter, the approval was granted, it doesn't matter who approved it. It was just approved by the city. So I think it's more clear just leaving it as the city.
Okay. Any other discussion, questions? I'll entertain a motion.
I really liked Councilwoman Price Hewish's motion. I think she should make it.
Okay. I move that we approve the Land Use Code text amendment to Subdivisions and Administration and Procedures Code as provided in this staff report with the amended language as read by Amber Corbridge. Do we need to read it out? To Exhibit A H.
I'd be happy to second.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Thanks. Okay, we will now consider approval of the preliminary and final architectural and site plan application for Arctic Circle, located on Orchard Drive. Ms. Corbridge.
Okay. I'll just pull up the report here. Let me zoom out.
While she's doing that, maybe we'll describe for the scouts.
Oh, yeah, what this is.
So this is a subpart of what we've just discussed. Rather than a residential subdivision, this is a commercial development that is having its plans reviewed for approval by the city council. So if instead of an Arctic Circle, this were a single-family home subdivision, we would no longer be having that discussion in this meeting.
And this is exciting. This is about Arctic Circle, where you go for ice cream, right?
Where you guys are headed right after this meeting, right?
So, take it away, Ms. Corbridge.
Okay. So tonight you're reviewing the preliminary and final architectural and site plan for Arctic Circle at 2071 South Orchard Drive. The applicant is proposing to put in a brand-new structure with rearranged parking and new landscaping. I can show, let me go ahead and show what it would look like. This is the existing site now, this aerial here. And this is the proposed placement of the new restaurant with drive aisle here. They'll have 2 lanes to help with the traffic flow. They'll come this way where the drive-up window will be here. And then the option to go out this way to Orchard Drive or pull up front and wait for their order if it's taking longer. So going back to the review of the commission, during the November 7th Planning Commission meeting, they reviewed this application and forwarded a positive recommendation to City Council with conditions, and they voted unanimously 6-0. Those conditions are to add arrows to the site so that drivers coming through the drive-through will know which options, like where they may be able to go. So it'll help clear up traffic flow. And I actually received a submittal on the 20th from the applicant, and I'll show you that updated site plan here. Oh, hold on. That's not it. It disappeared. 1 second. Okay. Okay, it's not. Hold on. Anyway, you can kind of see them there. There's an arrow here, an arrow there, and then they're going to have in and out arrows down here.
Is this a renovation as opposed to, are they raising the building and building a new one, or is this?
So this is a new structure. There are elevation drawings in the packet, I believe. if I included those, let's see, on page,
Is this because you're concerned about the saddle seats? Because I am.
I'm
Okay,
just
so
wondering if they're.
page 57.
Oh, they're not there anymore. Oh, I'm sorry to let you, sorry to,
Yeah,
We have them.
It's a complete demo.
oh, it's a
Yeah.
complete.
Yeah,
So
in
here's
a
what
brand
the
new
new
building.
building will look like. It's loading, hold on. 57 is where you'll find it in the packet. And 58. Here, so it's the side view, but that's what it will look like from the street, that one on the right
I'm
there.
gonna sneeze.
Sorry if that's hard to read.
Thank you. You know, I'm sorry, I think I kind of interrupted your presentation.
it's fine.
Were there more things that you wanted
So,
to?
yeah, that was the recommendation of commission, just to add those arrows to the site. It complies with all other codes. There may be a few comments from staff that need to be addressed, but it does meet the code, so they recommend approval.
If I might, Mayor?
Sure.
Please.
I was surprised to see that parking is reduced a lot, and it does still meet the requirements.
It does meet the parking requirements.
So my only negative feeling about this is that now the accessible parking has to traipse across the parking lot to get to the building.
Let me show that site plan again.
But it does remedy the fact that the drive-through was actually driving through on the neighbor's property for all those years.
Right.
So it moves the building over onto their own property, and now they can drive on their own.
Yeah.
I share the concern about the accessible parking, and all parking really has to go through a drive-through or onto where vehicle access is. Be nice if that was reversed. If it meets
We
code.
ask our engineer or, oh, I see our chief here. You know, during warm months, we get a lot of traffic to places that serve cool treats. Has this been a site where we've had traffic backing up onto Orchard? And do we think having the double lane solves that? And if so, are we willing to accept that at the expense of some parking in order to better facilitate the drive-through access?
I'm not aware of any complaints about backing on Orchard Drive from this location.
Okay.
As a carpool mom to Mill Creek Junior High, they give out free kitty cones at Arctic Circle. And this at 3:30 on any given day, it's backed up because kids want to go get a free kitty cone. So this is going to help all those parents who are, servicing the kitty cones. Carpool.
I do recall enjoying those, just like I'm concerned about the horse saddle seats going away. It made the ice cream better.
Any other questions?
I'll make a motion to approve the preliminary and final architecture and site plan application for Arctic Circle located at 2071 South Orchard Drive as presented and with revisions as required by staff and planning commission.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
That motion passes. Great. Thank you. Now we'll be pleased to hear from Mr. Alan Johnson to consider approval of the purchase of a 2024 Ford Explorer.
Yes, Mayor and Council, it's a great and honor to be here tonight to discuss these several items. As you said, the first one we have is a purchase of a 2024 Ford Explorer. This is an item that we do have in our current budget. We did go out on state bid as you normally do, and Larry H. Miller was the state bid, but we also went to Performance Ford, who actually beat the state bid by not a lot, but by just a little bit. So it'd be the Power Commission and State's recommendation that we award the purchase to Performance Ford for the 2024 Ford Explorer for $42,641.52. Again, this is anticipated to be purchased in this year's budget. I will say it's got a 6-month delivery on it, as we do know that there's been a strike and they may be behind. We'll have to see what happens. This may push into next year's budget depending on the timing when it gets delivered. But at this point, they're anticipating thinking that we could have it by June 30th. So again, that would be the Power Commission, the staff's recommendation.
Excellent. Any questions?
Move to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that passes. Thanks so much. And now our next item to consider purchase of the bucket truck.
Yeah, as we looked at it, we're following into a new world, not just in transformers, but in vehicles. We've typically, on our big trucks like this, it's not been unusual that they would have a year delivery on them. There are times we'd order it and it would creep over into a next year, so like we talked about with the Explorer. But it has gotten now where our bigger trucks, bucket trucks, these specialized equipment, are in multiple year deliveries. What we're looking at here today is replacing a 2010 bucket truck, and it's one of the ones that we would put Christmas lights up, work on traffic controllers, street lights. It'd be one of our smaller trucks. But the delivery on this is 29 to 32 months, so we're talking 2.5 years out into the future on this vehicle. We have gone to Altech, which has the state bid for this type of equipment. It would include a Ford truck, 4-wheel drive, similar to what we have got before on this. And they have gone out and looked at what they anticipate the price of the vehicle and everything. So this is a set price that we would have into the future. So it'd be the Power Commission's and staff's recommendation that we approve from Altech Industries for a single bucket truck that would have a 29 to 32 month delivery. Like I say, this is something we'll have to identify in our 25-26 budget when it comes to that point. We do not have to put any money down at this point. There's no deposit, no partial payments. All they're requiring is a purchase order and a name, and then they'll put that into their construction period, and we'll pay for the truck when it does get here at that point. Should for some reason we decide we do not want to move on this or even the next one, there is not a penalty for us to drop out because there is such a need for them that they feel like they can sell them to somebody else and sell that slot. So there's, at this point, there's no real risk. It just puts us into the construction slot with a fixed price into the future. So anyway, it was a Power Commission and staff's recommendation that we do approve the single bucket truck from Altex for $233,873.
Thank you.
Mayor, I have a question for Alan. So I noted in the report and noted in your presentation just now that our price is locked in. Have they future guessed this price? So this is what they think this price is, or is there any danger that they could come back in and have guessed wrong and the cost of this truck might be $20,000 or $30,000 more, and they might try and prematurely cancel our order since we've actually put no money down and we have no skin in this game?
We find ourselves in a brave new world. A year and a half ago, I would have said, no, it's fine, people will hold to it. But I have seen through these last few years, people had to come back. As you know, we ordered a truck, actually from Ford, and they went for a while, and they finally canceled the order, said we can't meet it. So there is always the chance that could happen. There's also a chance they could come back and say at the end of this, it's going to be $30,000 more or some number. But we would have the option to say, yeah, but we're not willing to pay that and walk away from it. They are looking at their best effort with the commitment they've got with Ford and with their manufacturing company that they believe they've got a number that they can meet. But like I say, as we all know, the world can change and things will happen. So I wouldn't want to say for sure, but they actually believe they've future-proofed these two vehicles.
Okay, yeah, I mean, we've in your sector in particular, we've seen so many force majeures. It is an interesting time.
And that's what I'm saying. So that's why I would not want to say absolutely for sure, but they're indicating that they have future-proofed it, but there's a lot of things that could still happen, so.
We'll hope for the best. Thanks.
Could I ask a question, Mayor?
Yeah.
Just looking at this and the next one also, the next truck, double bucket truck. I'm just wondering how, and maybe you don't have this information just off the top of your head, but how do these prices compare to, our last purchase of these types of trucks? Are they, this one at 233,000?
I should have that number memorized, but I don't. You see, obviously, this has been a while since we bought the last one.
Yeah.
But we have two of these single buckets. Our last one we had was 205, 210,000 or something like that. So it is a little bit more money than what they are. The double bucket truck, we haven't bought one that my memory is, but they are more money. Vehicles are more, the equipment is more. I mean, everything's a magnitude more. So it is more than what we have been spending on them. So.
Thanks. Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor,
Approve the purchase of the single bucket truck as presented.
second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, that passes, and now we'll move to the double bucket truck purchase.
Again, this one is really similar in the fact, and you'll notice this is a 2005 truck. And I will say the real scary thing about having 5 years out, heavens forbid something should happen, getting an accident or something would happen. It's going to be really difficult to find equipment to be able to get by because we don't have an unlimited amount of vehicles of this nature. So, like I say, so as you're looking here and finding you have to look out 5 years, you have to start saying, I hope this truck is going to hold up and it's not going to have problems. And because we use these things, like I say, all the time. And the double bucket is one we use typically when we're using the higher voltages or live wires when they're working on it. So we do use them quite often. So, but anyway, this one we did go out, got the state bid, and Altech still has the state bid on this side. This is a heavier duty truck. This would be on the bigger Freightliner truck. So it's a bigger truck. It's a two-wheel drive, not a four-wheel drive. It's similar to what we have been using in the past. It has an elevator, which means it goes up high enough we can work on our highest 46,000 volt lines if we need to. Again, this vehicle is out 5 years, and like I say, and they believe they future-proofed it. However, as Councilman Bradshaw's indicated, there's been a lot of force majeures and things that are going on, but it's our best guess, and if we don't get into the queue, we will not be able to do it because they've been just inching out further, not getting further ahead. So again, the same thing, we don't have to make a deposit, we don't have any payments until such time the truck is going to be delivered. Should we come to the point, again, if we do not want it in 5 years, we can take it and they'll sell it to somebody else at this point. So again, that would be our recommendation for the Power Commission staff, that we approve the Altech Industries for $365,310. We will have to add this into the 28-29 budget, which just seems funny that we're looking for approval that far out, but.
Question, how many single and double bucket trucks do you currently have?
We have 2 single bucket trucks, and we currently have 2 double bucket trucks.
Okay, and this would be adding to that fleet, or?
No, we will be getting,
You'll sell?
we will sell both of these. So at the end of this, we will have 2 single buckets and 2 double buckets, so we won't be adding back on.
That's satisfactory for breakdowns and repair and all of that, I assume.
Well, obviously, we would love to have 4 of them, but it's what physically makes sense, so we keep them running. The scary thing about keeping this one is that, like I say, it's already a 2005, so if you put another 5 years onto it, it's going to be, 20 years old, so it's going to be well past. So if we wanted to look at having another one, we may want to look at ordering another one. But this is one of those things as we look into our 10-year capital plan, how to fund these equipments along with everything else. We actually build it into our ongoing budget as we look into our cash reserves to be able to pay for this far out. So,
Are they ever available used, the trucks?
yeah, in our last couple of trucks, and again, we haven't bought one for several years. We were actually able to buy demonstrators, which meant they were lightly used for 6 or 7 months. But like I say, with the changes of the world in the last 2 years, they don't do anything like that. Most of the trucks that you are finding used, if you go down to the auction or whatever, are really used heavy. Like I say, and most of what you're gonna find is vehicles like what we've got right here. You don't see a lot of, say, like 2 or 3 year old vehicles sitting out on the lot like you would a car, so.
Thank you.
Can I ask a quick question, Mayor? As far as when you're saying we need to kind of make sure that we're not in one of these unfortunate circumstances where we're left kind of in a lurch if something breaks down, or it is looking 5 years out to get this. I'm just curious, if we did have a need and we had some kind of an issue with our trucks, what do we do? Do you lease something temporarily? Do we look to other power cities for, I don't know, I'm just curious. I'm just curious what we would do.
In the past, we have, like I say, had Murray City, for instance, we had to set a heavy pole before we got a heavy enough truck. They would come out and set the pole for us. If we was to really get ourselves in a bind and say our trucks were down, any of these cities would come help us as well as we would go help them. There are also still available trucks that you can rent. That fleet is still out there that you can still get them. They're not available every minute, and you wouldn't be able to pick them up every night, but if you got in trouble, we could look at leasing or renting a truck to get us through a point. So it's not like there isn't other options to where something happened, the whole power system would come screeching to a halt because we didn't have a truck, so.
Having said that, I know we have a wonderful maintenance staff that oversees and helps with all our vehicles and does a great job. Given all that, if there's no other questions, I'll make a motion to approve the.
I do have one
Okay,
quick
great.
question. I apologize. I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. Did you say it was a 2-wheel drive truck or 4-wheel drive?
The double bucket is a 2-wheel drive.
And we're okay with that, given our topography?
Yes, we are, because for a couple reasons. The smaller trucks are all 4-wheel drive.
Okay.
This truck, if you make it 4-wheel drive, it becomes extremely high and top-heavy. I mean, they do make 4-wheel drive, but because they're so top-heavy, they're dangerous to drive. They're not as stable, so the 2-wheel drive works better for our application. The other good thing is, I will say, as you pointed out, the staff, not only at the street department that works on them, but Charles guys do such a good job. If we get in trouble and we got to get up in the snow, Charles sends these guys up here and plows us the road and salts it to be able to get those big trucks up there. So, because like I say, we wouldn't want to be driving that big truck. We let him deal with the salt and take all that danger. His guys are tougher than ours guys are. So.
Terrific. Thanks for that clarification. And yeah, none of us would be able to get by without Charles in our streets department.
No, but
so.
like I say, 4-wheel drives in our department for the smaller trucks is a necessity, but the big ones, we rely on
Terrific.
Charles guys to get us up there, so.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question on that? Is the hesitancy to buy these trucks just because money's tight in the power company? Is that why there's concern?
So just at this moment, it's not a public hearing, and so, no, it's okay. We're happy to, do you want to just speak to that briefly, or staff, or?
I'll speak to it.
Okay.
I don't think there's any hesitancy to buy the truck. It's the lead time and conditions that we're having to buy the truck. So we have to make the decision now, and none of us on the stand here will still be in office if we're not reelected before that truck shows up. So it's a long lead time. I think that's the only issue that people have had.
Thanks. Good question. All right, you ready for a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion to approve the double bucket truck from Alltech Industries in the amount of $365,310.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes. Thank you. And now, for your last item, some power poles, consideration to purchase some power poles.
Yes, thank you. And a good thing about this one does not have years of lead time, that we'll actually probably get them the first part of next year. But it's just the point that if we've been through our routine maintenance, changing poles out as we've been doing and finding what we need to get our stock back up. So keep it up and prepare us, like say, should we have a windstorm or snow or whatever may happen. I will notice that in here, I did make a typo, that we're looking for 50 of the 45-foot poles, not 40-foot poles. The pricing stays the same. I just put 40 instead of 45 on the staff report. But this is in here, like I say, the delivery on these poles are somewhere 10, 12 weeks is what they're talking about getting here. So we're talking in the spring when they're going to come back into these poles. So again, this is a single source item because it's still only one company that will supply the butt treated poles. And it gives a reminder, we do use the butt treated poles because the vast majority of our poles are in backyards and our linemen have to climb poles versus being out on the street when we could use the bucket trucks that we're talking about. So these are ones that are safer for them to climb when they're working on it. So again, it would be a single item. These prices is roughly the same as what we paid when we ordered them last spring, and I think it was March when we ordered our last order, so they at roughly the same price. The delivery has come down. Their delivery was a little bit better than it was, so it would be the Power Commission staff's recommendation that we approve the purchase of these 75-foot poles from Stella Jones for $83,400.
I'll make a motion to approve in the spirit of price stabilization and faster deliveries, the purchase of these poles.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, excellent. Thanks so much for your
Thank you very much.
presentations. We'll now turn the time over to our city engineer, Lloyd Cheney, to discuss the request for a stop sign installation.
Thanks, Mayor. About 3 weeks ago, the Traffic Safety Committee met to review a few items, and the only action item that came out of that meeting was this request for the stop sign installation at the intersection of 10th East and Center Street. Now, that request was initiated by a car accident that happened in January, and the homeowner in the northwest corner of the intersection was the recipient of a car in their front yard. So you can imagine that gave them a little concern. I won't bore you with all the details of our staff report, other than to maybe reiterate that we did have a good turnout from the public, and there was quite a vigorous discussion about what the appropriate treatment should be. After some deliberation by the committee, the recommendation was made to install stop signs in lieu of yield signs, which were originally recommended. And that motion passed by a vote of 3-2. So that is the recommendation that comes to you as the council tonight, along with 2 additional requirements that staff work with adjacent property owners to mitigate some clear vision issues at the intersection, and also that the engineering department would conduct a crossing study for the existing crosswalk at Center Street and 10th East. And we'll do that in the spring as we have a little more availability with personnel. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about our discussion or the process or any other relative matters to this.
Thanks. What's the process for how the signage and the bushes that are affecting the visibility, what is the process for them to be notified or?
So typically, that's a function that the engineering department takes on with our interns. And so we don't do it every year, but it's on like a 2-year rotation. 1 year we'll do signs, next year we'll do clear vision evaluations. And so our intern will contact property owners and deliver them a notice that says, hey, your bushes encroach into the clear vision area. You need to trim those, or you have a fence that encroaches, that blocks vision. and we coordinate the remediation of that with the homeowner. So this one unfortunately hadn't been noted in the last round of evaluations, so it was hanging out there.
So now that we have these two identified, do you expect sometime in the next, what's the time frame that you expect for them to be notified?
Yeah, we will notify them in the next week or so, just whatever we're waiting for whatever happens here at council tonight, and then we'll initiate the actions.
Okay, great. What other questions do you have, council?
I have a question about why placing the stop signs on 10th East rather than Center Street? The crosswalk for the school kids crosses Center Street, and if we wanted cars to stop so that the kids could safely use the crosswalk, why wouldn't we put the stop signs on the other cross street?
The MUTCD, which is the national
I
standard,
was so hoping you'd tell me what the acronym was.
the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, there you go,
Thank you.
is the national standard for the installation of traffic control devices, including regulatory signs like stop signs or yield signs. They give us some guidance. And in your memo on page 72, the last two bullet points, stop signs should be installed in a manner that minimizes the numbers of vehicles having to stop. At intersections where a full stop is not necessary at all times, I'm going to skip this part because it just refers to yield signs, but the next bullet point, once the decision has been made to install two-way stop control, the decision regarding the appropriate street to stop should be based on engineering judgment. In most cases, the street carrying the lowest volume of traffic should be stopped. So the lowest volume of traffic would be on 10th East.
Is it ever mitigated by the fact that there's a school crosswalk as compared to a non-school crosswalk?
No, this isn't an uncommon installation. Cars are still obliged to yield to pedestrians in a crosswalk. Now, part of our study upcoming this spring will be to better understand the volume of kids there and does it really warrant a crossing guard. To this point, I don't believe that the volume of kids has met that criteria that it needed a crossing guard.
Okay, thank you.
Just going to point out one other thing, that on Center Street, going both directions, there are, what is it called when it shows the little walking people, like?
The advance notice signs for the crosswalk?
Yes. So going both directions, Kate, Councilmember Bradshaw and everyone else, there are two advance notice going, oh my gosh.
There's one about 150
Going each
feet.
direction. So you see them like about 30 or 40 feet before you get to the crosswalk, then another one right in front of the crosswalk. So there is signage going up and down Center Street. There, as Lloyd pointed out, there is still some questions about, would it be an appropriate place for a crossing guard? And I, for one, just want to say I really appreciate the conversation that we had at the Traffic Safety Committee meeting, and I really appreciated Lloyd suggesting this, that the engineering department could do a school crossing study. I think that will be really great and provide the information that so many people are looking forward to getting. I also just want to point out those awesome scouts that were here. There were 4 scouts, and they each came with a prepared question. And one of the scouts, I really wish he'd stayed. His question was, I go to Holbrook Elementary. I cross Center Street when I walk to school. Is anything happening? And I said, oh, this is your lucky day. So we're talking about this actually today, and it's been kind of months in the coming, in the making. So Yeah, I just wanted to say I appreciated all the work, and there was a lot of work that went into this from the engineering department and from Lloyd, and I really appreciate that a lot. So thank you.
Also, I know that Councilwoman Price Hewish, after we met for the Traffic Safety Committee, had a question about the approval. And so if you don't mind, Lloyd or Gary, either one, to just mention what the approval process is.
So for Bountiful, requests for regulatory signs usually come to the engineering department. They also come to members of the Traffic Safety Committee meeting. And so those are considered and a recommendation is made by the committee that's presented to the council. And the reason why we follow that process is because the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, otherwise known as the MUTCD, has this statement very first in the manual. Traffic control devices shall be defined as all signs, signals, markings, and other devices used to regulate, warn, or guide traffic placed on, over, or adjacent to a street, highway, pedestrian facility, bikeway, or private road open to public travel. Now here's the important part. By authority of a public agency or official having jurisdiction. So the council is the local agency with jurisdiction. And that's why it takes council action to authorize the installation of these signs.
Did Richard put you up to that?
Until the state mandate, no, I'm just kidding. Too soon, right?
I have a question. So, Lloyd, can you touch on safe routes to school in Bountiful? Do we have safe routes to school?
Is there an acronym for that, council member?
I'm not aware of one.
Okay.
I think it's self-explanatory.
All right.
It used to be called the CARP, the Child Access Routing Plan.
Wow. There is an acronym for that.
So state law requires that each elementary and junior high prepare a routing plan for their students. And that can be found on the internet now through the Safe Routes Utah website. So you can go there and you can look by district, by school, and see the designated routes for every school. Now, those are supposed to be brought either to the local jurisdiction or to UDOT for review. Doesn't always happen. But nonetheless, there are plans out there.
And is that a consideration when looking at where we put our crosswalks and stop signs?
Yes, that's kind of a coordinated, it's supposed to be a coordinated effort. That's why it's supposed to be brought to us yearly so that if there are changes, we can make the changes.
Yeah.
But they're, generally pretty static.
I kind of share what Councilmember Bradshaw was saying earlier about the stop sign and the crosswalks, and we're seeing such, not in Bountiful, thankfully, but just statewide, such an abundance of distracted driving and pedestrian accidents, and really feel like we should be really proactive and cognizant about how kids are getting hit in crosswalks not uncommonly. And if we put a stop sign up, I feel like that helps with that crosswalk could help significantly reduce that misunderstanding that might occur as someone's crossing a crosswalk and thinking the car's stopping and they're not, but there's, if there's a stop sign there, it seems to be an added buffer of security. So I don't know that I want to go against what the traffic committee suggested, although it was not unanimous, so maybe would suggest such, but that it kind of does concern me, to be honest.
Maybe I could explain the two votes against.
So I did hear about that, the Center Street, the number of traffic counts there. That doesn't concern me so much personally, but go ahead.
I think I can speak for Charles. Charles and I voted against the stop signs initially because we felt that a yield sign was a more appropriate treatment. There are months out of the year where traffic doesn't need to stop. There are hours out of the day when cross traffic doesn't need to stop there, that the right-of-way rule, when applied, functions great. But that's water under the bridge, and Charles and I both agree that we support the action of the committee and support the installation of stop signs.
Yeah, that seems to represent what was discussed at the meeting. What other questions do you have, council, or comments or concerns?
I do have a question that's only tangent to this, and that is, what is the height that's allowed on those line of sight issues? Is anything allowed?
Vegetation is allowed to be 2 feet tall,
Okay.
adjacent to the side. Well, I think it's specified as 2 feet above the elevation of the curb. And the fencing would be allowed if it were open. Yes, it's because it's solid that it's a
Okay.
problem.
Solid fencing, 2 feet limit as well?
I believe so.
Okay.
Sorry, with the vegetation, how many feet back from the crosswalk? Did you say that?
The measurement
Sorry.
that's used, we would go out, you go out into the street and you find the intersection point of the tangent pieces of the curb, and then you measure in each direction 40 feet to create a triangle. So everything in that triangle can't be taller than 2 feet. And I might add that that hedge has been pruned significantly at that point. I mean, there's a definite step in the hedge where it has been trimmed previously. It just hasn't been done recently.
I would also note that all of the property owners that have issues outlined in the report, they were at the Traffic Safety Committee, so this will not come as a surprise when they get contacted by the engineering department. I would like to make a request, or a motion, sorry, there's a request here. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the stop sign installation at 1000 East and Center Street at that intersection at the north-south. And that, do we need to also approve the recommendations that the engineering department conduct a school crossing study prior to the end of the school year?
Second. Any discussion?
Yes, one item. I just want to say that I'm grateful that we don't have stop signs on Center Street and on 400 North and other places where the grade of the road would make stop signs, especially in slippery conditions, cause for traffic problems. So, thank you for that.
And I would say thank you to the Traffic Safety Committee, both the elected side and the staff side. I understand this was a particularly robust traffic safety meeting, and I'm grateful for those of you that put in the extra time to do this hearing with neighbors and to provide that opportunity to redress grievances.
You're here.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
Oh, and I'm super grateful to the wise drafters of the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices for their thoughtful discourse on the placement of stop signs.
Councilmember Bradshaw, for the sake of brevity, could you please use the acronym for the manual?
It doesn't form like the name of an animal like carp for safe schools, so I can't.
All right.
Were you ready for a motion?
Oh, we've had motion and
Oh,
second.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Yes, and it's been seconded. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That motion passes. Thanks so much. And now, I will entertain a motion to adjourn to an RDA meeting.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilwoman Segar Arbar and seconded by Councilman Higginson. And so We are adjourned, and all in favor?
Aye.
And do we now need another motion to, okay, do we need a little break?
Yeah, we don't need a motion, we just
Okay.
need an
Okay.
announcement that we're starting the next meeting.
Thank you. We are reconvening as the RDA board, and so we will move to our agenda, to the separate agenda, and I would like to welcome everyone to our RDA meeting here on November 28th, and we will consider approval of minutes for August 8th, 2023.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and now we'll consider amending the terms of a 2018 loan for Renaissance Place Apartments. Is this you? Okay, thanks. Francisco will help us out.
Thank you. Francisco Astorga, acting as the RDA director. The city received a request by Mr. Bruce Broadhead, representing Renaissance Place LLC and Broadhead and Associates LLC, to extend their 2018 loan. As indicated on page 3 of the staff report, towards the middle of the page, those were the terms that were agreed upon back in 2018. About 3 weeks ago, we received a request, as Mr. Broadhead requested, to extend the term of the loan by a total of 7 years. So he would like to simply add another 2 years to the existing term. His reasons are simply in that in his business plan, he indicated, in his write-up, he indicated that his plan was to refinance at this time, and he indicated that he's had issues with HUD in underwriting delays as well as interest rate increases lately. So the city, or I'm sorry, the RDA, we have entertained his request, and at this time, the RDA, the board, has the ability to request it, or the staff recommendation is to extend it by the 2 years, but to increase the interest rates from the standard 3% that we have to 7%. And those terms are specified on page 4 of your packet here. And the other option that you do have is to simply not take any action, and the applicant, or Mr. Broadhead and his LLC, would have to simply comply, as he has one standard payment due on December 1st, and then the balloon payment would be due on December 31st, 2023, which is $441,697.98. We did indicate on the very top of page 4, as we try to outweigh the impacts, in that the challenge that we have is that this balloon payment would add or replenish funds on our loan program that could be of benefit to another project within or adjacent to the RDA. So I'll be more than happy. Any questions? You see here Mr. Broadhead and Brian Knowlton, who is also a entity minority owner. And with that said, the staff recommendation, again, is on the middle of page 4, where we are saying that let's go ahead and extend it by the 2 years, but let's increase the interest rates for the remaining 2 years at a 7%. I'll be more than happy to answer any possible questions that you might have for the RDA at this time.
Thank you. What questions do you have, council?
Did they provide any secondary or supporting documentation to the report than what was submitted in this packet, such
No.
as? Okay,
No, that was it. It was included on page 6 of the packet.
great, thank you. So,
And 6 and 7, sorry.
and has this maybe revision to the interest rate been discussed with them prior to tonight?
Yes.
How was that received?
It was from my verbal conversation with Mr. Broadhead, it was stipulated as, let's move forward with it.
So, may I continue? Sorry, I
Oh,
didn't.
please.
I am sympathetic to raising interest rates and that they have not been able to get an interest rate that they maybe once expected 5 years ago. But I'm also very passionate about our taxpayer funds, our RDA funds, and knowing that we're watching those funds closely and needing and wanting those funds recaptured as soon as possible so that we can move forward with other projects that may come up or may be in our purview. So I like what maybe I see presented here at 7% for the next 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if that could even be 1 year instead of 2 years. I would be curious to see, if they've applied for a loan recently, I would imagine they've had a packet of information they've provided for that lender or lenders. I hope it's more than one. But as they've sought for additional financing to repay this. But I wonder if we could ask for that same packet of information they've provided and have readily available, I assume. For our information about rent rates and occupancy rates, it would be really interesting to me as we're loaning $550,000 from RDA funds on this. Possibly, that's just for discussion and consideration.
Yeah, I think we can have the applicant speak to that. Before we ask, are there any other questions, council, that you have for them so that when they come to address us, they can answer any questions?
I have a question for staff.
Go ahead.
Councilman Bell raises a good point about, the RDA dollars and what projects we might be delaying. Are there projects we might be delaying, like, for instance, the planter boxes on Main Street and extending them?
No, these are funds that are in the loan fund. So this would simply be money that would not be available for other loan options, but it doesn't delay any capital projects that we anticipate.
What is our current balance in the loan fund?
Current balance is, I want to say, I should have that number memorized too, and we've looked at it 2 or 3 times in preparation for this. I believe that it's $2.5 million.
Do we have other parties that have indicated they would be seeking an RDA loan?
We do. And no applications, just discussions. And thus far, we would have the funds to be able to accommodate those, plus more.
If I may, I think Councilmember Bell's concerns and comments and even the suggestion of a 1-year extension is entirely appropriate. I think it was the letter dated November 14th and the application. I guess a question I would have for the applicants is this is not a surprise that the is coming due. I'm wondering why it was delayed until 6 weeks before the end of the year. And so that's an additional question if they're going to speak to the questions that we have, and just kind of what efforts, again, that have been made kind of in a timely manner to get refinancing on the loan. And I guess guess that's all, just kind of putting an exclamation or an underscore on what Councilmember Bell has said. I would like more information as well.
Thanks. Any other requests for information before we have the applicant speak to us? Do you mind?
I don't know if I say mayor, council, or RDA board, but thank you for hearing us. I'm moving a little slow. I had a knee replaced about 2.5 weeks ago. So if I get a little wobbly, so I want to kind of start addressing some of these comments. First of all,
let's address Councilperson Hirsch's comment about the time of.
If you don't mind speaking into the mic, thanks.
Time of application. We selected a HUD lender a year and a half ago. We started the process a year and a half ago. We met the deadline of December 14th of 22. And the normal underwriting process for HUD on a loan like this, which is called a 223F, is 6 to 9 months. The time period between June and December of 22 is a period where you do your third-party reports. And by that, those are the consultants that HUD requires to come in and do the diligence work, environmental, HUD regulations, FHA regulations, what am I forgetting? Energy certifications, et cetera. So we did all of those to qualify for a HUD loan and completed them all and completed the entire application in 22. Normally, as I said, it was represented that we would be 6, maybe 9 months in underwriting to loan closing. HUD, because of some issues that they have had, has chose this to be drug out. It is not something of our choosing. It was not something that we even anticipated in the slightest. Otherwise, we wouldn't have even gone the HUD route. It has been twice as expensive in fees and costs. And so if we hadn't been so far into it, we'd have pulled the plug on it. Okay? So that's a question about why it's taken a long time, why we backed up to the entry period of time. We were hoping that HUD would, and from our conversations with the staff at Dwight Capital in New York City, who, by the way, is the largest HUD lender in the country, and we thought had the greatest expertise, since they do more HUD than anyone in the country by far. And they've been proven to be very adept at what they're doing, but this has been a mind-blowing experience for Dwight Capital and HUD as well. So that's a little bit of the background. It's been a long, arduous task. One of the things about the length of the time is that when you take a HUD loan out, you don't pay it off within the next couple of years. They have defeasance clauses, which means those are penalties. They usually go on a sliding scale of 10-9, 10, 9, 8, 7 for 10 years. So if you go to refinance in a favorable interest rate market and it were to change a year later, you'd have a very hefty penalty, which would preclude you from ever wanting to pay that penalty because it wouldn't be economically feasible. So that's why I put on a longer period of time, because of the interest rate market situation right now. That nobody's got an answer to that I know, and nobody's got a crystal ball to know what the Fed is going to do and how soon. And of course, the Fed probably doesn't know either, because market conditions they're doing the best they can to pull certain levers and looking for results. So that's a little bit of background. Go ahead, Mark.
HUD has also asked for some additional reports, and those have been accomplished in the last 3 months and been submitted back in. This is an active application. It's active. This is what we are planning to do. Coming back to the loan the original approval, okay? We got RDA approval for this funding on March 27th, 2018. It's in the right up at page 9 on the first paragraph, okay? However, the loan was actually taken out January 1, 2019. So if I go 2019, January 1, and I take a 5-year loan out, it doesn't mature in December of 2023. It's December of 2024. So for some reason, the note was written and the funding was done, and I wasn't involved in this part, by the way, but because it was approved on March 27th, 2018, the 5-year was to December of 2023. That's not how loans work. If you take the money out for 5 years, and you borrow it on January 1, 2019, you have 5 years from 2019. There's an error in the note. And it's a side note, so there's no error. Okay, but I just don't understand that. Okay, I don't understand how a 5-year loan is really a 4-year. And part of the reason why we're asking for 7 is to recapture the year that we should have already had. And while we believe we will have our HUD loan done next year, we don't want to do this again, and that's why the request is for 2 years. As far as the rate that's been proposed, Francisco was, and again, we hit him 11th hour, and this is the last meeting of the year. This is the last meeting before we would either have to pay it off or default, which is not in our interest. And so he hustled to put this together. His presentation to Bruce was at 7%, and Bruce said, please write it up. Okay. I go back to, so I have done several RDA loans that helped me tremendously to help build things in the community. I used one where Blackstone is. I used one for Culver's Atticus on Orchard Drive. Specific to the one where Blackstone is, I did come in and ask for an extension, and it was granted. It was, again, very similar thing. There was a blip in the cycle. We got our extension, we paid it off. I use the RDA loan as a very powerful tool to help develop and build the community here in Bountiful. And my understanding of what is the revolving fund is it's exactly that. It's to help get commercial things to happen in the city, in the areas where it's appropriate. The reason that the city, this is my impression, this is not necessarily Kerry's, okay? The reason why 3%? Because it was to incentivize us to do things. Okay? Why the 5-year call? Soft call, by the way, because you do 7-year loans, you do a lot of different things. It was to keep that money revolving, so it can keep doing what it's supposed to do, right? Why the 20-year amp? I never figured that one out. Okay, so that's what you have. So when we come to here now, and we are 11th hour, and we really should have one more year in the original loan at 3%, and we're asking for additional year. And for the reasons we have, I don't pay 7% if I initiate a loan right now at a commercial bank. That's higher than current market cost of money. So it's certainly not an incentive from the RDA to hit a market rate that is going to help me have confidence in the 3 projects that I'm working on right now that I do hope to apply for RDA funding.
start season development. So whether this project is cash flowing or not, or anything to do with the project at Renaissance Place, there's nothing to do with the collateral.
And if I can add, one of the reasons that it was approved in March and not taking it out to January was our primary lender on Renaissance Place did not want an RDA second or an RDA subordinated loan. So it was moved to one of the west, two parcels actually, two of the west parcels in Renaissance for collateral. So you literally have a first.
And they didn't want one on a mixed use building in particular. Mixed use was, again, what was being required all over during that period of time. And cities had to cut up with the market, basically turning their nose up at it. Lenders didn't want to lend on mixed use buildings unless you pre-leased the commercial space before you ever build it. And there's very little pre-leasing done in this valley. Commercial realtor will tell you that doesn't happen very often.
Thank you. Yeah, any other questions for the applicant?
I want to take issue with something Mr. Knowlton said, but in a friendly way. I want you to have our money and put it to use. So, and then I want you to be done with it and move on to the next project. Yeah. But no other questions. I have a comment, but these two gentlemen don't need to stand for my comments.
Thanks. Thank you. Okay, what comments, questions, ideas?
I wasn't aware of the term and when the draw was actually made on the loan. I think that what Mr. Knowlton has proposed seems fair, that if there really is another year out there on the 5-year term, that it would be granted the same interest rate as the original note specifies. And I don't have a problem with moving the interest rate up after that. I do want to say that both of these gentlemen have been beneficiaries of the revolving RDA funds to the betterment of the city. And it's what the funds are there for. They're not there to be a balance in the bank. They're there to be put to work. And the funds are at work right now. And as long as there are funds available for other projects that can come along, it sounds like we've got enough for what is being discussed at the moment. Gary, how much comes in each year to the RDA, into this fund?
Nothing into this fund.
Okay.
Nothing into this fund.
Thanks. So I'm comfortable with staff's recommendation as a whole, except that I think that if there's a year remaining on the 5 years of the note, that we grant them the same interest rate as they had, and then talk about moving it up after that year.
Can you speak to that? Did you have a comment?
I simply wanted to clarify the terms of the loan. I'm looking at the trust deed note that was prepared and signed on November 28th, 2018, which it clearly indicates the payment, the monthly payment, commencing on January 1st, 2019, and then until December 31st, 2023. That's a total of 5 years. So I don't see this missing year that's been discussed herein. As a side note comment, the original loan was approved in October 10th of 2017, and the RDA did approve it, coming in second position. Then in March 27 of 2018, that loan was amended to reflect the first position of the city. And why it took so long from March to December, I could not indicate such, other than that the RDA did amend this loan on March 27, 2018, and then the funds were provided to the applicant on December 11th of 2018, hence commencing the full term in January of 2019 and ending in next month, December of 2023. So the full 5 years are accounted for. There is no discrepancy in that 4 to 5 years. It has been 5.
Thanks for that clarification. Any other comments, questions, deliberations?
I have a,
Go ahead.
Thanks.
I used my fingers on that.
Thank you. Okay.
He has had the knee replacement.
Councilwoman Bradshaw.
I guess a comment, I'm prepared to make a motion, but would delay if any other colleagues have comments. My biggest concern coming into tonight's meeting was to make sure that our reservoir of funds was sufficient and that we weren't delaying any other projects. Staff has satisfied my concern on those 2 points. I agree that a fund of this nature is meant to be put to work, paid back, put back out to work, paid back as many times as we can do it while the RDA exists. I'm happy to see other projects at the Renaissance site underway. So my concerns are resolved, and I'm glad we've, covered contractor math so that we can feel confident in how to count. I'm ready for a motion, but we'll delay if there are others that want to express thoughts.
So I do have a question, and so you went over a really fairly detailed account of your HUD process and where you are in the process. So you're not restarting the process as far as I understand. You're on the tail end of this process. I love that, the 11th hour. I just, with having a normal kind of lead time of 6 to 9, or time frame of 6 to 9 months, you're now almost 18 months into the process. At the tail end, I just, I don't understand. Other than, if you're saying that you anticipate this is going to happen in the forthcoming few months, why would a year not be sufficient?
There are issues that I wouldn't want to discuss in an open meeting. Discuss in a closed meeting.
Do you mind coming to the microphone for the record? Sorry.
My response is there are issues that I think we would not be well served to discuss in an open meeting that affect property and property values and would affect this particular property plus the adjoining property. If we would want to go into a closed session, I'd be happy to discuss them.
Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant or any other discussion?
I think all my questions have been answered as well regarding this.
Okay.
So I don't have anything.
May I just ask a question? Maybe there is not an appetite to go to a closed session. Is there?
No.
Okay, I don't see anyone clamoring for that. I would just like to ask a question without revealing any material nature of what you're referencing. Is city staff aware of the issues that you're referring to?
Should be.
So really, all that's really, the last piece of the puzzle is they've asked for one more third-party report. And that's, we've actually done it. It's submitted back to HUD. So to answer your question on timelines, assuming HUD accepts that last third-party report, then it goes to the bond market and we start working on pricing. One of the other big things this year is what's happened to the bond rates and 10-year rates and all rates. The Fed's had a fun year for us. And so at that point in time, assuming that last document was accepted, Bruce is nervous because that's his job. I'm not nervous about it because that's my job. Then we start going into pricing and placing the bond funds, which ultimately roll into the HUD funds, and we have to pay I think it's about 400,000 to lock rates. And once we do that, that's our rate for 40 years, and there's no way out of it. So the reason that we're trying to get a little more time than just what we would absolutely need is so we can actually see how markets are going. With it being an election year, typically, frankly, in the new world, we don't know anything, but typically they do a little better going in and out of an election. You know, everything seems so not normal, but the hope is, and why I said don't go for a year or 6 months, because that's what we think we need, was to do it for 2 years so that we wouldn't be here next, well, honestly, it wouldn't be before election, but it'd be the first week in December next year saying, okay, this is all I've got left. But so I just wanted to do one extension and have that in place so that we have a little bit of wiggle going into, I really think we will be trying to fund in June, July. Okay, but as the bond markets start moving and things start happening as they're projected to do, you're already seeing what most people look at is mortgage rates. That's not necessarily what you look at for larger projects. It's bond markets, and it's a 10-year, and those rates will start changing. And I've been told that's changed third quarter this year, and they didn't because of what the Feds did. But that's why I think next year will be a good year for us to finally put the permit in place. And again, I don't want to come in and ask for the bare minimum I need and be back here saying I need 1 more month. I'd rather say, look, we will commit to having it in the 2 years and hopefully make that work for the RDA also.
Thank you.
Brian, I really appreciate your candor and that additional information. That is super helpful. So thank you.
Thanks.
Mayor, if I may comment.
Please.
In that, in my discussions with the applicant, procedural and the challenges have been presented to staff, but no specificity has been presented as far as the financials, other than what was simply presented on page 6 and 7.
Thank you.
So just to be clear, procedurally and what's exactly been represented on page 6 and 7 has been shared with me, but not the actual numbers in the challenges that they had in their, I guess, third-party loaning, banking.
Thank you. What other discussion do we have on this?
Excuse me. My voice has been in and out the last few days, but only to say that I do agree that this money is meant to be put to work, as my colleagues have said. However, I am hesitant for the reasons that Council Member Bell and Price-Hewish have expressed, and specifically in setting a precedent moving forward for other RDA loans. However, that being said, we do have the city does have a good relationship with both of you, and I think we can be confident in your character and in agreeing to or fulfilling these terms. I would like a little bit more information, just as far as financials are concerned. I don't know if Councilmember Bell, and I apologize, I had to step out, but if it was addressed on submitting any of that paperwork that would be submitted for another loan, I don't know if that is appropriate or not, but I do think it would be good for us to have something in our public record. If I'm, excuse me?
Could we ask Bruce to
Would you
come
mind
up
coming
to
to
the? Sorry, Bruce, you're so soft-spoken.
Just because we are under the impression that what is in our packet is the only information that was submitted in writing to.
When we applied for the loan, it was required that we submit the appraisal on the project, which we did.
The
original appraisal. And it is part of the package that you had originally.
I'm saying at this point in time, if we could have something in writing other than this one memo of a request.
We can send them the current
Yeah,
appraisal.
we can, the appraisal's been updated, we'll be happy to to deliver that to the
I would just feel more comfortable if we have something in writing.
No, I say we'll be happy to give
Yeah.
a copy.
So we can give the current HUD appraisal to everybody, frankly. The one thing that is pertinent on this particular note, I think it's important to have that. The funds were loaned specific for Renaissance Place, okay? However, the first trust deed is on land that is not Renaissance Place. It's a parcel to the west. So you have a first trust deed on a parcel of land, actually it's 2 lots, that's well exceeds the $480,000 balance. The interesting thing to remember is from the loan's inception to now, every single payment is perfect. Not one payment has been missed. Even though it's not tied to the financials of Renaissance Place, it's tied to a vacant piece of land. The revenues from Renaissance Place have serviced this note. I think it's really a good thing for you to have the current HUD appraisal, and by current, it's now almost a year old, but it's still because of how long we've been working on HUD. But it's very easy to submit that to you, Bruce, isn't it? Yeah, so.
Thank you.
I would appreciate that if we think that's appropriate, but.
Thank you.
Would you want it on the building or the parcel that the trust deed is for?
We do not have a current appraisal on the parcel, we do on the building, which is the source of repayment.
Because the security for the loan is the property, not the building on which the
And
money
while
was
I read
borrowed.
that in the report, I had failed to fully remember that, and I appreciated them stating that there is a difference between what our money is tied to and reserved for and what this building is that we're in question. And that's a little bit confusing, but it's reassuring to me. The city has first right of refusal to this bare ground that's well over the value of our loan, which gives me great comfort and is very simple in general terms. It takes out a lot of complexity of what we have a right to.
I think to my point was, for me, going into this, the initial, not necessarily the HUD loan documentation, but just the request itself just seemed a little bare to me. It didn't have much background. And so I just had a lot of questions because of it. There wasn't much information. It was just simply the market is undesirable. And so I just needed more information. So
It's a big blanket statement. I
Exactly,
apologize for that.
exactly. And so I just think, and I don't know if maybe the minutes from this meeting will be enough of a record because there's been a lot of back and forth, but I don't know if everything that you have shared has been recorded because I don't know if it was on the microphone. So I just think maybe a little bit more of an explanation, maybe an addendum to the memo, expounding on what exactly is undesirable. Is it the underwriting? Is it the timeline? Is it the interest rate? Just everything that we've kind of gone over tonight. Just so we can have it for our record and moving forward. That was my main request, so I apologize if I wasn't more direct.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Yes.
I'm just piggybacking on what Councilmember Segurvar just said. Would it be appropriate to do a conditional approval of the extension of the loan as the applicants have indicated they would be happy to share or put on file the HUD application with the city or with the planning department, and then we could have that information. And I think we all understand that the loan is not, it's not secured by the actual property, the Renaissance Place, but a bare parcel on the west side. But it would provide additional information that I think as the lending institution in this case is appropriate for us to have.
Sure, yeah, we can request that, absolutely. So is there a motion?
A motion. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the loan extension as outlined in our staff packet with the additional 2 years at 7%.
I'd second.
Okay, that's seconded by,
Or
okay, it's
With no
for
conditions.
Jesse Bell.
Yeah, my motion doesn't include any of the conditions.
But we did request,
The
and
motion,
they said
the
they were
motion
happy
didn't
to.
request additional information.
I think it's understood that we're requesting it and they're willing to give it. So that motion has been forwarded and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you so much. And now,
Move to adjourn.
okay, move to adjourn by Councilman Higginson and seconded by Millie Segura-Bar.
Mayor, did you vote on that motion?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
It was so fun. We're adjourned.